thank you. Mr. Lino?
I also support this. The use, the expense and the use of porous pavement, which is a product I'm somewhat vaguely familiar with, having read about it anyway, is becoming increasingly used in cases like this. And even though there's more pavement, it's not like traditional pavement where all the water gets run off and then puts into storm drains. The water is reclaimed into the groundwater at the site, and as has been explained, gets filtered right there and does tend to actually reduce pollutants that go back into the groundwater. So this is I don't think that the reduction in open area is a detriment in this case.
Mr. Shaw?
I concur with my colleagues, and I guess the other thing I'd just like to note, it's actually kind of nice to see something like this that's actually using a PI zoned property and continuing that use. I think we've gotten very used to requests for changes of use and variances in that regard. So the actions and ability to preserve this kind of usage that as the PI zone was intended for is encouraging as well.
Ms. Morris?
I concur with my colleagues, and I am in support.
Ms. McKay?
I'm going to echo what my colleague to my right just said. I'm in support, and I agree with what's been said previous.
I'm also in support. I recognized when I saw this, because I'm familiar with it, it was in the watershed, and I was curious to see, if there was anything. And again, you're encouraged by the fact that there is a property that'll be used, so for its intended use, but with all that parking, it was good to know that they were at least trying to mitigate that. So I'm in support of that. Anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make.
Go for it, Mr. Lino.
Fine. I'd like to make a motion on behalf of the applicant, the owner, of the 1987 Tamposi Limited Partnership. Address is 10 State Street. They are requesting a variance from the Land Use Code, Section 19016, Table 16.3, for minimum open space, 20% required, 10% proposed, for a parking lot expansion. This is in the PI, Park Industrial Zoning District. My motion is to grant the variance. The variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property for a warehouse and distribution system that's normally done in a PI zone. Given the special conditions of the property and the benefit sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. We had heard testimony that additional parking was needed for the delivery vans that will be used in this business, and that's why there is a reduction in the open area. It's within spirit and intent of the ordinance. The purpose of the ordinance is to reduce the impact on water supply, leaving open space, but the design of this parking lot with the porous pavement will actually improve the penetration of water into the groundwater supply better than just leaving it open. It will not adversely affect the property values of surrounding parcels. Adding a parking lot into this zone isn't going to make any difference to the surrounding parcels. It's not contrary to the public interest. There's no impact to the public for adding this parking lot, and substantial justice to the applicant would be served.
Seconded by Mr. Courier. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor of the application, of this motion? That's 5. So this motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I take this opportunity to switch roles and ask the board a question?
I'm going to close the public meeting.
You need to remind them of the 30-day.
Right, yes, he knows.
I know he knows.
We'll take a general comment.
I'm just wondering if the board knows who the applicant, or has any idea of who the applicant is that will be using this building.
No
I will give you a hint. The name begins with an A.
Well,
Thank you.
that applicant already has a facility in Nashua, if it's the one I'm thinking of.
No, they left. They're now back.
Oh, really?
Another one. This one, I forgot to be clearer. The trucks go through the warehouse, taking the packages. They go through the warehouse.
Interesting.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You win.
I'd like to open the public hearing for case number 3. Ronald and Jill Butler, owners, 21 Oakland Avenue, sheet 109, lot 57, requesting variance from Land Use Code, section 190-31, to encroach 14 feet into the 20-foot required front yard setback off of Klondike Street to erect a 24-foot above-ground swimming pool. This is in the RA zone, Ward 6. Welcome. Can I have your name and address, please?
Hi, good evening. My name is Ron Butler, and I live at 21 Oakland Ave in Nashua, and I'm here today with my wife, Jill, to request this variance.
Okay. I know we got your application.
Would you like for me to state what the variance is about?
We've read your application, but yeah, sure, just give us a summary. That would be great if you'd like.
Basically, with my lot being on the corner of Klondike and with my, let's say, actual frontage on Oakland Ave, after buying the home a couple of years ago and having a first grandchild, there was a lot of talk about putting in a pool. So I wanted to erect a above-ground pool, temporary structure, on what would be considered my frontage as well, because I'm on a corner, and encroaching into that 20-foot setback as a best placement in my yard for the pool, keeping it away from neighbors, the filters running and things of that nature, pushing it out toward the street, where there's more sun, no trees, to put debris in the pool as well. And again, where it's a temporary structure behind an already existing fence, it didn't feel as though it would be of any visual obstruction or issue to any neighbors. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Okay, so, thank you. Anybody with any questions? Mr. Currier?
I'm just curious, you say you've owned the house for a couple of years. How long has that fence been there?
To my knowledge, well beyond when I owned it. The person who lives behind me directly abuts my property used to own the property. He, and then in turn sold it to someone else and bought, and actually had already owned the same house. He bought it for his daughter. When his daughter sold, a neighbor bought it, but there was already a fence erected, prior to, I guess, a couple of owners back.
Okay.
So it's an existing fence.
I think there's a requirement for a fence when you have a pool. I forget what that is. Do you happen to know what it is? Is it like a 6-foot fence?
It is a 6-foot fence.
Okay. And then I guess, I've read your application. I understand your point. Just to play it out, like I think what you're saying is you feel it would be less disturbance to your abutter in this proposed location versus if it was away from the street, because you're saying it would be closer to the house, I think, and louder.
It will be further away from everyone's house. If you, on my drawing that I did provide, it's not as big as the others, but it does show that my neighbor's driveway's here.
Okay, yeah.
And the pool would be here, and the street's here. Again, all, protected by a fence, if you will. This area is the best area to reserve for a play area, and it's also my 2 neighbors' backyards. So this is where they would have their backyard and their backyard as well, which would, again, and our bedrooms and their bedrooms. So the filter would be located in this area, which would basically, having had a pool in the past, be echoing off the houses as well. Out here, it sits and it's, in my opinion, better. My neighbors agreed. They felt as though it was better. They have no objection. I've spoken to them all. So I just felt like overall it was better for everyone. And it certainly is better for my land use as well.
Okay. You know, again, there's a requirement to have a fence around. If this application were approved, I was looking at it and I was thinking, well, maybe stipulate that the fence remains, but it would have to stay essentially anyway, because you need to surround the pool with a fence.
Correct.
So by that requirement, if this were approved, the fence would need to stay. Is that your,
I would absolutely keep the fence there.
those are
I
my
have
thoughts?
no intentions of moving the fence.
Yeah, okay. I'm all set.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Butler? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, anybody with opposition or concerns with this application? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. I took a look at the property, again, familiar with that neighborhood. And again, what we're really talking about here is a piece of property, because it's on a corner lot, it's got two front yard, really, front yards, for lack of a better term. I think if it was just a traditional lot, you know, the applicant would have been able to do what he needed to do without being in front of us. And I think that, you know, per the testimony of Mr. Butler, the applicant, I think he did a pretty good job at really being concerned with his neighbors and where he placed the pool, even though when I first looked at it, but then I understood kind of after looking at the area, kind of what he was doing, you know, a little bit more understanding. So I'm in favor of the application. Ms. McKay, any comments?
Yeah, I don't have any problem with this. I, too, agree with you that if this was a typical lot, it wasn't a corner lot, this would be a non-issue. So I'm in support.
Ms. Barnes?
I'm also in support.
Thank you. Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, I am, and I think the key thing is that, again, goes, I think especially to the point of that one area that it could be placed without having to have the variance is going to, by all appearance, is going to be way more impactful to the surrounding neighbors and properties. So this actually seems like a more appropriate solution and, again, less impactful.
Thank you. Mr. Lano?
I agree with Mr. Shaw.
Mr. Curry?
I'm in support also. You know, I was, when I first saw the written application, I thought, well, that's a big encroachment. And then looking at the property and realizing there was in my mind, a long-standing fence that had been there, you know, to put a pool behind it really is a small impact, you know, and I would be sensitive if abutters didn't see things, you know, the way the applicant does, but it sounds like he's checked in with them and they've all concurred that this is the best spot and nobody has an issue and I don't. I'm in favor of it as well.
Anybody like to make a motion? Mr. Shaw?
I'd like to make a motion on behalf of Ronald and Jill Butler, the owners at 21 Oakland Avenue. The request is for variance from Land Use Code Section 190-31 to encroach 14 feet into the 20-foot required front yard setback. This is off of Klondike Street to erect a 24-foot above-ground swimming pool, and this is in the RA zone. The area variance is needed for the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property. In this case, the primary issue is that it is a corner lot, and so there are essentially two treatments of front yard setbacks, despite the property facing, the home facing Oakland Ave. The applicant has proposed this placement while close to, again, Klondike Street. It actually will be less impactful to the neighbors and adjoining properties by not being in the other only rear corner part of the yard that would be available. So this is the only feasible means to reduce the impact. It's within the spirit and intent of the ordinance, allowing the homeowner to pursue this kind of usage of having the pool. There's no evidence of any negative effects on property values of surrounding parcels. It's not contrary to public interest, and substantial justice will be done. I move that we approve this area variance.
Seconded? Ms. Bush, I'm sorry you can't vote, but I appreciate it. But we appreciate your enthusiasm.
I'll second it.
Mr. Lionel. Any discussion? All in favor of this motion? 5 to nothing, so the motion passes. Congratulations. There is a 30-day window of appeals, so just be aware of that. Okay? Thank you. With that, I close the public hearing and open the public meeting for case number 4, which is for William Ackley and Kathleen Felton, owners of 12 Brookline Street, sheet 64, lot 43, requesting a variance from Land Use Code, section 190-16, table 16-3, to encroach 22 feet 9 inches into the 25-foot required front yard setback on Douglas Street to construct an 8-foot by 22-foot 3-inch home addition with covered porch onto a non-conforming structure already encroaching 18 feet into the 25-foot required front yard setback towards Douglas Street. It's in the RA zone, Ward 2. Welcome. Your name and address, please.
William Ackley, 12 Brookline Street. And my sister doesn't live there, but her name's Kathleen Felton. She lives in Bedford. I'm coming to request a variance so that I can add a mudroom, laundry facility, and a bathroom on the bottom floor of my house to make it more marketable and easier to live in, basically. The house was, as you know, was probably built in 1910, so it doesn't conform already to the encroachment rules. And I'm not going to encroach any further than it already does. And I respectfully request this variance approved.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like? We have your application. It was pretty thorough. We have a lot of pictures here. We have a diagram of what. Excuse me? There was a fire. Okay, so there was a fire in the house?
Yes, there was a fire last October.
Okay, so you're in the process of, obviously, that's what I was trying to figure out.
Yes, we're doing a major renovation, and we thought this was the best time to be able to do this.
Right.
And
Okay.
and slowly getting the house back together. I plan on being in a couple months.
Right. Okay. So we have your application. I'll just ask you a question, if you don't mind. So you have a, where the house is situated, it looks like you have a good-sized lot, similar to your neighbors, but your house is, because it was built such early, right, it's really pushed up against the street.
Right.
Right. So, just curious, when you were looking at putting this addition, had you considered any other type of design for this, or is it you kind of locked in for a specific reason to this design?
Well, that's the main entry to the house, basically. We don't commonly use the front entry, as many houses nowadays don't. And I wanted to be able to have the entryway there, and I'm moving the stairways, so that doesn't encroach any further. I'm moving them back to where they originally were, which was down to the side of the house. There wasn't too much else I could do to put an addition there. The way the grade is on the other sides of the house, it would involve substantial work.
Right, that was my other question point, is that you have a,
I have a walkout basement on the other side. It's on
Right.
a lower floor.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
I would have lost that,
so it's not a flat lot.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Mr. Correa?
I'm looking at this drawing here, if you can see that, it's, has your existing house, shows Brookline Street, Douglas Street, and then the addition.
Yes,
And so the addition is like on the back side of the house, if you're standing
Correct.
on Brookline Street.
correct.
So there's also like a porch with some stairs going down it. Is that new, or has that been there?
The porch basically is existing now, but it's a little bigger. I have pictures if you'd like to see.
'cause I guess while you're getting those pictures, a question for Mr. Falk is the calculation of 22 feet, 9
I
inches.
think that includes the porch, too. But the new porch won't encroach any further than the porch that's on the existing house now.
Okay, if I could take a look at that. So, okay, well, this is what's there now, right?
Right, and
Okay.
basically, there's a pantry on the other side.
If you wouldn't, if you could speak into the microphone on that. Oh, yeah. I think we have these pictures in our application.
Yeah.
So that porch you're showing me here, that, to me, looks like an existing porch.
It
Has
is.
that always been there? Okay.
Yes, it's
But
always
you're-
been there. When we first moved in 50 years ago, the stairway coming off the porch wasn't there. It would take off to the left in that picture. And that's what I'm looking to do with the new porch when I put it up. It's not gonna come out any further into the driveway, but the stairs will go away and move to the side, come down along the house again, the way they were 50 years ago.
Okay, so this porch, as we see it, isn't going to encroach any more than it was
No,
before?
no, sir.
So the addition, in terms of Douglas Street, isn't encroaching anymore? I mean, it's
No, yeah, it
further
doesn't-
out the back of the house,
Correct.
but it's not any closer to the
Yes,
street?
correct.
Okay. That's what I thought I saw, but I just wanted to
Yes,
make
I
sure
know, it's a
I
little
had that
confusing.
right. Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience that wants to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, anybody with questions, concerns, or in opposition of this application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Currier.
I'm favorable to the application. It's a large request, but as testified by the applicant, it's not any closer to Douglas Street. The proposal is to build an addition on what I'm calling the back of the house, which is, the side of that is matching the existing house, so it comes before us, but it's not any closer to the street. And so also the existing porch is going to be rebuilt and the stairs are going to be reconfigured. It's not going to be any greater encroachment than what was there before. So I guess I'm favorable of it for that reason. The other observation I make is, as I drive down Douglas Street, a lot of the houses as you go down Douglas Street front as this applicant does, one way or the other, but not on Douglas Street. And there seem to be a lot of other structures that are close to Douglas Street also, in violation of the current setback. So I don't think that this proposal looks out of place because there's several other houses that are situated like this one is. Those are my observations.
Mr. Lino?
I agree with what Mr. Courier said, that, this is, the only reason that we're here tonight is that the addition is going to match the existing incursion, so I don't have a problem with it.
Mr. Shaw?
And I concur, and I mean, the applicant even, the first thing was to highlight that he said virtually every home in my neighborhood doesn't meet current setback requirements, so I think, that's very telling and very true, and this keeps it actually in character of what's going on, so I'm very comfortable with it.
Yeah. Ms. Flores?
I concur with my colleagues and in support.
Ms. McKay?
I agree, I'm in support. I did notice that he said the house is already in the setback, as are the others, and the fact that he is moving the steps to the side, he's going back to the original, and it's actually going to be less impactful into the setback, because it's gonna come off the side as opposed to the way it was. So when he takes it back to the original, it will be just a better use of what he's trying to do. So I'm in full support.
And I'm also in support for all the reasons stated. Would anybody like to make a motion? Mr. Currier?
I'll make a motion on behalf of William Ackley and Kathleen Felton of 12 Brookline Street. Again, the request is a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16.3, and the request is to encroach 22 feet 9 inches into the 25-foot required front yard setback on Douglas Street to construct an 8-foot by 22-foot and 3-inch long home addition with a covered porch onto a non-conforming structure already encroaching 18 feet into the 25-foot required front yard setback. The board finds this variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property. And the special conditions are, as I just mentioned, the existing structure is well within the front yard setback on Douglas Street, and the applicant is seeking to make a reasonable addition on the back of the house, and therefore it's not gonna be any further encroachment, but it is encroaching. I think the board finds it's within the spirit and intent of the ordinance to allow this encroachment, given the special condition that this structure is already encroaching. I think the board finds it'll not adversely affect the property values of surrounding parcels. I think the board finds that this proposed addition will be in character with this home and with the other homes, because many of those are close to Douglas Street. I think the board finds it'll not be contrary to public interest and substantial justice to the homeowners served by allowing this 8-foot-long addition to match the existing footprint of the house. So I make a motion to approve as presented.
Second the motion, Mr. Shaw. Any discussion? Seeing none? All in favor of the motion? That's 5, and nobody opposed. The motion carries. So congratulations. Again, just be aware, there's a 30-day window of appeal.
No, does that mean I can't start working on it?
You shouldn't.
You can talk to Mr. Falk tomorrow, and he can give you some details if you need more. Thank you. All right, with that, I close the public meeting and open the public hearing for case number 5. Brian J. and Renee M. Coxis, owners of 12 Echo Avenue, Sheet C, Lot 930, requesting variance from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16-3, to encroach up to 7 feet 9 inches into the 10-foot required left side yard setback to construct an attached 22-foot by 28-foot garage with 4-foot wide mudroom. It's in the R9 zone, Ward 5. Welcome. You have your name and address, please.
Good evening, Brian Kosis. I'm here with my wife Renee Kosis. We live at 12 Echo Ave. We're fairly new residents. We moved in about a year and 9-10 months ago. Expanding our family, we use that side door as a main entrance point that goes into the kitchen up an existing deck. We're looking to add a 4-foot mudroom with a 2-car garage that we can park our vehicles in during the winter, in bad storm conditions, I should say, and even overnight. Looking to, add a 22-foot wide garage with a 4-foot breezeway. The length of the garage is going to be 28 feet. I do have a full-size Chevy pickup, so the length of that pickup is a little longer than your normal mid-sides. So looking just to expand that, a little bit deeper, to have a little bit of a work area and a bench, somewhere to keep the snow blower and the riding lawnmower.
Okay, we have your application here. Is there any questions for the applicant? Mr. Shaw.
What's the plan, if any, for the space that's actually above the garage itself?
Above the garage is just going to be cold storage. They are just going to do a rafter with a pull-down attic door, just so I can, kind of take stuff that's in the basement, stacked on shelves and on the floor, and just have a cold storage up there, the Christmas ornaments and Thanksgiving stuff.
So clearly no living space.
No living space above the garage, correct.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Lionel.
I'm a little concerned by the 2'3" minimum clearance to the lot line. That doesn't leave a lot of space for access, although I suppose one can go around the other side. I did notice that I believe your neighbor on that side has their driveway and their garage is on that side. At least the driveway is on that side. I don't remember what I saw.
On that street, our driveways are on all the, I should say, left sides of the driveways, or the yards. I do have enough room on the other side for access. We do have a travel trailer that is parked currently where I want to put the garage right now. The travel trailer is about 9 feet wide by 28, so it's about that size that I can move to the side of the yard and, have it parked in the backyard or on the side of the other side of the house. We have had water issues on that street, I should say, or at least I have. Moving into that dwelling, I had water in the basement recently that I did not know about. I ended up putting a footing drain around that so that the water is gonna be, off that side of the garage coming down into, a footing drain as well, and then exiting out into the rear of the property.
And again, in consideration of this, what you wanted to do here, other considerations that were considered? Were there any, and what
we
were the
did-
challenges?
We had several challenges on this as well. I've had several contractors coming over to see what we could do with this and the price-wise. Price-wise, for me to put on, still a mudroom, where we can, at least utilize, take off our shoes instead of in front of the kitchen stove or in back of the door. Putting on, the smallest mudroom possible, which we thought was gonna be, a 4-foot by, basically only an 18-foot length of that garage, that side use. Still having an entry door between the garage and between the house. I do have a picture of that. I don't know if we've sent pictures of that.
I don't think we have a picture of it without, is that like a picture without an entryway, a mudroom?
So this is our basic.
Sure, you
Just
can
saying that,
just give it
Mr.
to me
Gurley.
and I'll pass it around.
We've had, a few contractors, give us quotes, and a few contractors, give us, some drawings and blueprints of what we are gonna do. With that, doing a mudroom with a single-car garage, I would still need to come for the variance as well. And then I wouldn't have a parking spot in the garage, I'd still have to have my vehicle outside, or, one or the other. And then what we were finding out, it was gonna be the same amount of money to build a 1-car garage with a breezeway as it is a 2-car, which is surprisingly confusing, but.
Okay, and other options on the property is now you'd have the garage really in the backyard.
Yes,
Right.
the other option was, putting a garage into the backyard, and extending our driveway about another 40 feet to come around the back side of the house against that line as well, so, it'd be right on, or over that 10-foot mark as well to continue that driveway back.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I guess similar to what Mr. Boucher was asking, so one of your other considerations was a mudroom and a 1-car garage. I mean, did you consider no mudroom and a 2-car garage, so you can have, the space and such like that? It would seem to me that if that were skinny down 4 feet, there'd be just a minor encroachment into the 10-foot side yard setback. And also, the reason I asked the question is I think you had your foundation like staked out, which I appreciate.
Yes.
And just my visual was like, that's gonna look, kind of very large, if to the abutter, was my sense from it, because it's so close with, that back corner in particular. So I didn't know, like, it's interesting, you were saying you considered a mudroom and a 1-car garage. If it were me, I'd be considering no mudroom and a 2-car garage, because I wouldn't want to let that go, the 2-car garage. But had you considered that option?
We have considered that option. Again, we'd have still the same problem. Doing the two-car garage, the 22 feet, we'd still have to come into that garage 4 feet for a stairwell. You'd need some kind of a stairwell coming out with the railing, coming down, and then, shoes would be, approaching inside that garage. It'd be nice to have somewhere that you can come into a warm area, have a bench or, at least a coat rack or something, hang up my boots. I do work for the utility company locally, so when I come home, I'm usually either completely muddy or completely wet. So, it'd be nice to have an area that's dry that I can at least sit down, take off my boots, take off a jacket, and then enter the house, without tripping over my daughter's shoes or my wife's shoes.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is anybody else in the audience who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, is there anybody that would like to speak in opposition or with concerns with this application? Come on up, sir.
Hi, my name is John Allard. I'm the previous owner of this house. I sold my house to my son. I am still a resident there. I've been there 27 years. My son cannot be here. He's out of town right now doing a job. He asked me to speak for him, in whatever I can do. I don't know. I never did
What's your
this
address?
before.
What is the address you're referring to?
10 Echo Ave, which butters number 12. We do have concerns about the water drainage of this garage coming for their land is up higher, we are lower. So when the water comes down, we are kind of like concerned about the water going into our yard, which will make a gully, which is wetlands in the back, which everything drains out in the back. We have water problems in the past, which the flooded area in the backyard was going. And if, I'm not sure, I'm not a contractor, I'm just a regular guy. If the driveway is, if they're gonna do a driveway for this garage, I would imagine the water would have to be pitched, or the driveway would have to be pitched for the water drainage, other than that, it will go into the garage. So with the driveway being up higher than the land at 10 Echo, the water would slope into our yard and go into our basement. It is butting our property line, which we're kind of concerned about the water in the basement and having other further water problems in there. My son did say he would have no problem at all if they wanted to build a garage, if they could just eliminate the mudroom. Do their two-car garage if they would like that, but the mudroom would be too much drainage coming on, and if they could do something about the drainage that would come off the driveway or the roof of this, I don't know how it's even gonna be built or anything like that. But I'm just saying, if the roof goes like this, all right, the water goes in their backyard, which will come down the slope into our yard and still be flooded. If they have it going the other way, the water will be coming down into our yard. It's just the way the land is pitched, I would say. If they could have gutters go around it and somehow make a drainage go into the wetland, if that's the problem without us getting into our yard, that would be great.
Thank you. I have a question.
Sure.
It's just a scenario. If the board were to see to approve the application as it is, and what I'm saying is, let's say we are looking at it with the mudroom, the way he has it set. Does your son or yourself, do you have a problem with that? If the mudroom was there and they were to be able to contain all the water onto their property and not affect yours, would you have a problem with that? Or is it, because I understand your concerns. I mean, the applicant said that he just found out about a water problem, right? So I'm sure that it's in his mind too. So the question is really, I get the sense of it that your son and yourself seem to be okay with the incursion. Obviously, he says, well, the mudroom would maybe be less of an impact for water, but let's just say that the mudroom were to stay, and they were able to contain the water on the property, would that be okay, or still not okay in his mind?
Well, I'm not an engineer or nothing like that. I'm not really sure how you can contain this water. This water happens. Mother Nature does it. It floods out the yards, and when it comes up, and we have wetland in the back, when it builds up, comes up closer to the house. So if you're adding more water to it, it's closer to the house, which we would have, I don't know how you're gonna contain it. It's a brook there.
Well, I think, we see a lot of cases where there are homes built, complete homes are built, and they have to go sometimes in front of other boards, but they have to contain all the water in their property. It's part of what they have to do, right? That's right. Right. So, so I think that the board could make a stipulation, or we could
All post-development
run off.
runoff has to be kept or maintained on the slot. You can't have an addition or have a development and all the rainwater and stormwater runs off onto your neighbor's property. It has to be contained on your lot.
So that's not something that they can and can't do, it's something they have to do. So if let's say that we were to approve the application in any form, they're going to have to make sure that happens, and they have to come up, somebody's got to come up with a plan to keep all that runoff. So it can't be any worse than what it is now. So when they put an addition on their house, even if it was in the setbacks and they didn't come here, they have to make sure that nothing goes, and there's no more water that would go onto anybody else's property than there is now.
All right, so if you were to keep it without the variance, the water would probably stay on their property more.
No, what I'm saying is that even if they didn't have to come here, and let's say they would have put a big addition off the back of their home, and it fell within the setbacks, and they didn't have to come here, but they just needed a building permit, they would still have to make sure that that water that comes off all that roofing that they would add, let's say they went out off the back of the house, any water that would come off that house, that roof, could not infiltrate the surrounding properties any more than the water that exists now. You follow what I'm saying? So anything that they would do can't impact the neighbors any more than it is. And maybe I'm not saying it's simply enough, but maybe you can.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I believe if you allow, it would add to it. I've been here 27 years, I see what happens. So I built the lawn up. It is a structure now. It does not contain any water that I did have with the previous owner. The previous owner had their driveway, and it was pitched into the yard. I did have a gully going right down. I had to patch that all in. I did all that for 27 years, while I was living there. And it's all fixed now. And I just think that this structure is just gonna bring it back again, and it's not my problem. Like I said, my son bought the house, but I still live there.
Right.
And I guess I'm the pool boy, I guess. I gotta go and fix the things. And I just getting a little older, and I don't really can do that anymore.
All right.
But that's my concern. My son said if they were willing to do a two-car garage without the mudroom, so they wouldn't be that close to us, because it is abutting the house, you're talking maybe 20 feet away from the side, maybe a little bit more, away from the side of our house where the garage will be, where we will not be able to open the windows full of view. We'll be looking at a garage. So it is kind of like, well, from here to that wall is going to be a garage. And we used to have an open space. So that's basically, I don't know, I guess that's it.
Any questions?
Just a comment that even if they didn't do the sunroom, the mudroom, it would still be about 6 to 7 feet away from the lot line. I mean, I don't know how far away from your house, but
Well, right now, I'm taking a rough guesstimate. I didn't do any measurement because, first of all, we weren't even known about this, except I read a note on a sign on the lawn. I would say is a good maybe 30 feet away from our foundation to the property line, but from the property line to where they want to go, they're going 7 feet, which I believe is supposed to be 10. I believe.
Okay, any other questions?
So if you, I would just say if you were to take the 2 feet away from the mudroom, that's 6 feet, you're in clear. I'm no mathematician either.
Okay. You're all set, Mr. Allen?
Am I all set?
Are you all set?
Any more questions, sir?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else with questions or concerns? Okay. So you have, if you want to come back up, and you have 5 minutes to address the concerns and that were stated.
Yes, it is a good concern with the water. Like I said, I was just made aware of the water as well the year after we moved in that spring. I
Excuse
am
me,
actually,
I'm sorry, for the record, your name again?
oh,
and
I'm
address.
sorry, yeah, Brian Kosis, 12 Echo Ave, the homeowner. The house that we bought is the lowest house right now on that street. Even though the grade level looks higher, my basement's actually 4 feet lower than any other basement on that street. I got a lot of water in the basement over last spring. All last year, we spent the summer months, like I said, putting a footing drain along the back edge of the house, along if you're looking at the house, the right side, to the front of the house to, protrude a lot of that groundwater out towards the back house where he was talking about the stream and the wetlands that we have. I do expect to, and will do. Been talking to the contractor, we're gonna continue that around the front house of the garage. The garage is gonna be a little bit higher than the driveway. Right at the lip, we're gonna be making a drainage there that's gonna be down about 4 feet, so it'll catch the runoff coming down the driveway into that drainage there, go down into a pipe along the footing drain, and then the gutter will have the footing drain, as well piped into it, and then, from there, it'll go along the back of the house and then straight out to the backyard. So yeah, all the water will be contained off of that as well.
Okay. So there was another concern raised by the neighbor about the proximity to the lot line. So any thoughts or any comments on any options that you may have in your mind right now, or are you just, this is where you want to stand right now?
It is, yeah, it is gonna be close. I do admit that, and that's why, I am here, and I feel that I am gonna try to make it as, less of an eyesore that I can. All the siding is gonna match the existing house right now. It's a brand-new sided house, brand-new roofed house. It was just roofed previously before we moved in, and sided, so, it's a refurbished, brand-new home. I do plan on having everything molding, matching. It's gonna be the white doors, the white molding with the maroon accent, as my front door and the shutters are. We have, discussed it without the mudroom and just doing a 2-car garage. The roof line would be a little bit different. With that roof line, we'd be adding, if we do the roof line, with our roof line, we'll be adding column supports inside the garage, where I'd be asking to go a little bit wider anyways, just because with a column that you have in the garage, you're gonna be opening up now car doors into columns that, where the roof line that we have now picked out with the mudroom, there isn't gonna be any columns, there's not gonna be any obstructions of opening up doors, so that's it.
Okay, so, just so we understand, as we look at this project, so you're saying that if you had to take the mudroom out, which is 5 feet, right?
Yes, it's about 4 feet.
Right, so the garage right now is designed, the 2-car garage is designed at 22 feet wide, if, for
Oh,
some
I
reason.
should say, yes.
Right, so 22 feet wide, and if for some reason the mudroom wasn't going to be there and you had to go with a different design, what would the garage have to be because of these column supports? What would you say I need for a width of a two-car garage?
Well, the width would probably, I mean, just adding probably another foot, foot and a half. So I mean, eliminating that foot, 4 foot. So I'd still say the, the garage would still be the 20, 23, 4, 24
Right.
feet. Just adding another foot or so for, the access for the columns.
Right, so, and again, because of the orientation of your roof, if the mudroom was gone, obviously, from a construction point of view, you don't want that pitch running against your house.
Correct.
That's why you have to change the roof.
Yes.
You'd have to change the roof
Changing the
design
roof line.
more to match what.
More to match the house, and then with that actually there is 2 windows above, for the master bath, or master bedroom. So the garage would actually have to be pushed back another, I don't know, I don't remember the measurement, but it was gonna be pushed back, instead of 3 feet off the front corner of the house, it'd now have to be pushed back quite a bit back for a roof line to actually clear that window that is above.
Right, and then in that case, we're back here because you're back up against that lot line pretty
Yes.
much where you are now.
Yes.
All right,
So out of the options, this was, like I said, out of the several contractors that were, coming over, giving us assessments, giving us values, pointers, this was really, I thought, the best and easiest way to rectify getting a 2-car garage, with, what I considering a useful enough for our, growing family mudroom. Somewhere we can kick off our shoes, like I said, and, yeah.
okay. Any questions for the applicant?
Just, could you clarify for me, the drain, was that like proposed to be like a drain that runs along the 26 feet of the front, so water going down the driveway goes down into that?
Yes. What he made me aware of a drainage that we can put in. It's about 4 to 5 inches wide, he was saying. It's gonna have a steel grate on top, it's kind of like the manhole cover, drainage cover, and it's just gonna be the length of the garage. So as water's coming down, it's catching the rainwater from the driveway and then bringing it to the edge where it'll then go down along the 4-foot frost wall to the footing, and then we'll have it tied in completely around to the back of the house.
So it'll be running, the proposal is to run around the outside of the garage and then out the back?
Correct, yes, into the ground. It's gonna be, the pipe will be going down into the ground about 4 feet. So you won't see the pipe, it'll be completely buried. The only pipe you'll be seeing is the side gutter, which will be just a white aluminum rectangle shape, and then a little piece of a white pipe coming out of the ground there that, the water will just flow into there, down 4 feet, and then it'll find the rest of the pipe and be pitched away from the homes and hopefully pitched away from my basement as well. I don't need any more water.
And the other question I have is, this looks like pretty much a brand-new plan from Hayner Swanson.
Yes.
So this was done, you needed a plot plan, so you wanted to know exactly where your boundaries were, et cetera?
Yes, in moving into the home, we were never certain of where the actual property line was. We were just going off of assumption of where the neighbor was mowing, was our property line. Come to find out where he was mowing, I was mowing his lawn and he wasn't mowing enough of, his. So, it's about a 4-foot difference of where we thought property lines were. So, in order to do this, and add a garage, I'm like, the first step is where is our property line? So, yes, we contacted out and had them come out, survey the property.
Was there any discussion with them about the water runoff or how to handle that with the garage, or was that with the different contractors?
That was just, over the contractors and their issues, and their experience of doing the pitches. And they said, basically every contract that I did talk to said that the footing drain was gonna be the easiest solution, which it fixed my problem in my basement, so I agreed with them on that.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Allard, you have the opportunity to come back and speak to what he spoke about if you'd like, and you'd have 5 minutes to do so.
I don't really have a rebuttal, I'm just saying what I just said. I'm worried about the runoff. The runoff comes in the yard. My son is just saying, just don't get that close to the house. We don't want to be seeing how beautiful siding garage is. We want our view that we had, that we've been having. And the runoff, if we have problems with the runoff, I don't know who's gonna fix it. But what happens with that? I believe there's gonna be a runoff no matter how high. Now you're going higher with the garage. He's saying he's going higher off it, which he's already higher than our lawn right now. He's like this. So if you make it higher, now you're gonna have a bigger pitch. I don't know how that's gonna be cured if he's making it higher than our land is. He does have a low pitch house because he has a high foundation. But it's down in the ground, but the property is up. So his basement is underground more than all the other houses on the street, which is a totally different, what I believe from what he's saying. I'm not a contractor, not like that. I'm just saying, all I'm saying is my son just said, two-car garage without a mudroom, he's away from the property line, they'll be fine. And he's gonna have to deal with the rest.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
okay, hold on. Any questions for Mr. Allard? No. Okay, thank you. We're all set. Thank you, sir. All right, with that, I'm going to close the public hearing and open the public meeting. I'd like to get going.
Looking at me?
Aye.
Well, you know, let me say this, I appreciate, like, the renderings of the drawings that we have, you know, the consideration of the roof lines. You know, clearly the applicant has put a lot of thought into this addition and make it merging right. And that's so much better than like a stick figure or where you don't know how it's gonna look like. And I can certainly see the need, you know, the strong need for the mudroom and the two-car garage. I mean, this in and of itself, I think would be a beautiful addition to the house. I am struggling with how close it is to the property line. I mean, when I looked at the property and see the stakes and look at number 10, I'm saying to myself, geez, if I lived at number 10, I'd be concerned with that. I think I'd be, you know, I just think it's too close. When I think of like, what if other folks in the neighborhood also wanted to expand their houses to this extent? I struggle with it, so maybe you folks can convince me otherwise. I certainly see the need and, you know, appreciate the applicant and a growing family and working locally and working hard locally and wanting to have a large addition like this. But I struggle with how close it is, you know, to the property line. So I'm struggling to find support for it. That's just my opinion, and I'm looking forward to hearing 5 other opinions.
Mr. Lionel?
I also am having difficulty with this in the proximity to the lot line, the orientation of the roof to me is a little bit weird, but I suppose I can see that, but going that close to the lot line for a garage, I don't like that. That's all I have to say for now.
Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, I think the applicant is going to do a very good job with the water issues. I think that's pretty clear based on his own experiences and everything he's described about the intentions of how to go forward with this. So I actually am much less concerned about that. I mean, I actually think the orientation of the roof and the way what's proposed is actually in some ways possibly better than having a larger facade up close. But I think ultimately I'm kind of where my colleagues are generally in just it's really difficult for me to support this amount of incursion, and especially when the immediate abutter has direct expressed concerns about it. But just in general, I think anytime there's a fairly significant part of a structure that's incurring this much into these setbacks, when homes are relatively closely spaced to those setbacks already, I think it's generally much different if there's a lot of width on the lots and you've got one property that's maybe pushed to one side, or that. I think those are the kind of special situations I think we're much more, or I'm at least much more inclined to believe, warrant a greater level of support. I mean, I think the difficulty with this property is still that there isn't a lot of width to it. There's plenty of depth, but it seems, and I think, Mr. Boucher, you kind of, I think, tried to delve into it a little bit there early on. It seems like to really get the size structure that they really need, I do think that the only option might be to go off the back of the property and go with the longer driveway. And I realize that might not be optimal, but I'm just very sensitive to the setback incursion for the abutter, and I'm struggling to support this for that reason.
Okay. Ms. Borat?
I agree with my colleagues. I'm not able to support the way it's presented at this time.
Okay, thank you. Ms. McKay?
Okay, well, I'm going to be different. I guess it is what it is. The water and the drainage, I agree. When the applicant came up, he answered a question even before it was asked. He raised the water issue, he said it was an issue, and that it was going to be mitigated. When the abutter came up, and I understand that it's very close to the property line, when the neighbor came up, he did say they didn't want to lose their view. In my estimation, they're going to lose their view no matter what, because even if they took away that 4 to 5 feet, well, no, it's not. The drawing says 5 feet for the mudroom, however, he would have to come in 2 to 3 feet anyway, so you're only going to lose 2 feet. So that's not a lot of space if you're asking just to remove a mudroom. And if it was me, and how I live, I would want to live with a mudroom as opposed to without it. He presented a very good reason for that. And with winters and children and his own employment, that would be logical. For me, it's the neighbor not wanting to lose that space, and it reminds me when a house was built on the lot next to our home, which was for years, 30, 50 years, empty. And then there was a property put there, and there was something put very close to our boundary line. And it was going to be different. It is different, but now it's like it always was. It's not different anymore, and it's not that much of an impact. So for me, regardless, whether it's 2 feet in or 4 feet out, you're going to see the garage. And the impact is, 2 feet closer or 2 feet closer on the other side. And for that reason, while I sympathize with understanding you don't want to lose your view, this view's going to be lost, and they have people, every one of us have a right to live on our property as we see fit. And so for that reason, I'm in support of this application.
Thank you.
Sorry. I took too long.
So again, Mr. Shaw stated, obviously, that this home is situated, I would say almost, it's not uniquely situated in a lot, but we've got a lot that's only 92 feet wide and 163 feet, 164 feet deep. So it's just this long, narrow lot. And again, the house is not sitting square within its boundaries and not shifted to one side. So it's at slight angle, kind of in the middle. So, you know, there's obviously challenges to the property. And again, two things, you know, that were brought up. There were several things, and I understand, you know, when the applicant talked about the specific construction of this house, because I did see the windows on the second floor. So the minute you would have changed that roof line, that's a completely, you know, different thing, and there was no intention of creating a more living space above the garage, because then, you know, that would be a different subject here, right? So the idea was not to do that. So a different roof line would have to be picked, and then now we have challenges of the existing windows. And again, you know, the project is really, with the garage, is not to reconstruct parts of the other house. So I understand where the applicant's coming from. The other thing was again, I completely appreciate the neighbor and the issues that they have. I mean, this applicant is experiencing the same issues with water, but we'll look at, you know, kind of like what the view is. I think that if a structure was built within the setback, it would be there. It would be at whatever height. Maybe and maybe not, there would be a difference, but the view will change anyways, and it's not to downplay that. That's just a fact. And so, you know, Mr. Carter did a quick calculation for me. 18. I just did a quick calculation for me. So that the property is approximately 164 deep. So what we're looking at is really 18% of that depth is really being taken up by this facade, the side facade of this garage, right? So it's 18% of the depth. I'm not saying that for or against, I'm just saying that's just a fact. So we come down to the view as I look at it, and then, you know, there was big concerns about the water. So one of the thoughts that I had was, while we're talking about this, and again, I don't know if we've ever done this, but whether or not, if we were to approve this application in one form or another as it stands or in a different form, whether or not we can or we could stipulate that there would be, they would get an engineering plan from a professional engineer on water mitigation. So, what I'm saying, so making sure to ensure that the water flows not outside the property. And I know he has had some contractors come over. And again, I'm just throwing that out there, whether or not that would make a difference and whether or not we could even do that or should do that. So there's that idea. And then obviously, what's out there right now is, you know, we could always approve this application to a lesser impact. But if we do that, I don't know, you know, it would be, you know, we'd be looking at 7 feet off the back corner and 10 feet off the front corner, basically. But I think the view would be the same with that, taking the mudroom off, because the abutters, the representative for the abutter stated that the owner of the home would be okay with the mudroom off, right? So that's just throwing that out there. That was just an idea. So with that, go ahead, Mr. Lino.
The view issue was not a concern of mine. I mean, that we have to deal with that any time, and any kind of building on the next property is going to impact the view. That happens, fine. But the reason for setbacks is partly visual appearance of the entire neighborhood, and also access. And I don't think that an addition of this size is necessary for use of the property. And as I said, the view issue to me is sort of a red herring. That's not a concern.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, I actually, the view thing isn't a concern other than ultimately when it comes to the actual position of whatever the structure is that is incurring. Because I guess I'm very sensitive to the ideas of especially side yard setbacks, because I feel like that is where one property's structures can really significantly affect the abutters. And so I guess ultimately that's really just my big concern here. And that's really the issue I've got with it. I realize it's kind of a vexing problem. I'm trying to, I even sketch a few things myself, just trying to figure out how you can position something that, that works. But, I know the other thing I wanted to note, and I think the real intent of the abutters comment was not necessarily even fully appreciating then the ramifications of removing the mudroom, but I think the idea of, as an abutter, I see this, and it's talking about this big garage addition and a 4-foot mudroom, and this amount of incursion, so it's like, get rid of the mudroom, have your garage, you're 4 feet further back, that's a pretty reasonable compromise. And on the surface, I think it would be, but unfortunately, it seems that because of the nature of everything with the existing house and what was proposed, that no longer really works. And so a 4-foot removal ends up being about only a 2-foot net removal, and so I don't think it really satisfies. And then further, if anything, it seems that the roof line would have to change, then there'd even be a larger facade that's now, even if it's 2 feet further back, I think it still might be just as or more imposing. So I appreciate the abutter's intent of that, and I think again, that would be a really, I think, reasonable way of perhaps solving this and giving a benefit to the homeowner without really the significant negative effect that the abutter's concerned about. And so, but again, unfortunately, I don't think that really nets out to be the satisfying solution. So I think we're left at, we could consider that, but I think to reduce the incursion by 2 feet to meet the actual need of doing that, I don't think really resolves this. So I think we're still stuck in that sense. So I guess I'm still don't see how to get to support of this at this point.
Mr. Curry?
Just an additional thought, like if, I can see how changing the roof line is a challenging option, if you want to try to match, I guess you call it the gambrel roof line of the house. But I mean, I don't know, could there be a consideration, like I see the one window there that's kind of in the way. If the roof line were changed, could that window be brought forward a little, forward and up, and another one in the back? I don't know. My thought is if you had a one-story garage, maybe you could still have 2 windows on that side with a reposition of them, but I don't want to design the house. I'm just saying that in summary, I'm I'm struggling to support that amount of encroachment. I feel the abutter is just providing a candid opinion that it's too crowded, and I empathize with that. I think I'd feel the same way, you know, if I were confronted with the question of it, you know, and I guess one suggestion I have is, if the board as a whole is struggling to find support, one option would be, I mean, you know, the applicant who's, you know, wants to do the right thing and hopes to live here a long time, and I certainly hope that, maybe one option is to perhaps table the application to give him some time to think about if there's a method of moving down the encroachment a little, or maybe have a few more discussions with a contractor. And I mean, it does seem like, you know, some sort of encroachment is almost inevitable with an expansion here, because you have the position of the house, which is somewhat centered and with something on this side, and I certainly think there's some level of support for some encroachment, but just not this much. So I'm just throwing out the idea of maybe a table for the applicant to see if there's some sort of plan that, you know, he can be happy with, and the family can be happy with, and is maybe a little less impactful.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. McKay.
I could support a tabling motion, but what we also have to remember is he's got a truck that isn't the typical size, and it's going to have to be a couple feet longer. And I recognize that because when my son built the garage, he has a big truck, and he had to build it longer so the truck could park. It wouldn't fit in the garage. He couldn't park it in our garage. It just wouldn't fit. My husband's truck doesn't fit in our garage. So that's something that has to be taken into consideration also, and maybe speaking to the abutters, speaking to engineers, speaking to contractors, whatever. Maybe they can come up with something that alleviates that, because there seems to be competing needs and issues. The need for not so close to the property line, but the need to use your property as you should be entitled to use it. They're very competing needs right now, and maybe there's a way to mitigate it, but I don't know the answer. I'm not an engineer.
Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, I think at least giving the applicant the opportunity to have the table and explore other things. I mean, I think I'm also fine with, if we are considering that, to see even about possibly reopening, so we could just get some testimony in terms of timing, because I realize this is one of these things that, to just say tabling it for 2 weeks is probably not going to be near enough time, but maybe whatever might be more reasonable, you know, at least 4 weeks. But I think if the board is open to that and seems at least open to the idea of table.
And I would support it too, and I think in this case here, it's the property is it's really unique in its way it's skewed, and it's really causing some issues. So, and again, I think it's maybe the right thing to do for the applicant. So is everybody in agreement that we would open a public hearing just for a minute to talk to the applicant to get confirmation?
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
reopen public hearing to receive testimony from the applicant regarding a potential tabling motion.
Seconded by Mr. Currier. Okay, and all in favor of doing that? That's 5-0. Sir, would you please come up to the microphone, and we're going to have some specific questions for you. So if you're following along, we're trying to do the best for our citizens, and we want to give you an opportunity. Now, you have a choice of just relying on what's going on now and we can make a decision, or we're offering to table this, which would give you an opportunity to maybe further research this. You've heard what our concerns are, concerns about the encroachment and all that, but the concerns about that. So you have an opportunity to have us table the meeting to a specific date. You can tell us how far you need to go out. We would table it to that date, and you could come back. And again, the idea is that we're trying to give you an opportunity to maybe relook at this and understand our concerns, the abutters' concerns, knowing that we want you to be able to do something maybe that's gonna work for you, because when we make this decision, if we made a decision tonight, it would stand, and then if you were to come back with a similar application, we'd have to go through a process called Fisher v. Dover. We'd have to see if it's really the same application, and that would be another whole issue. So would you be in favor of having us table this? Would you want that?
Yes, I would like some time that I can, get a hold of the contractors again, see if there is something different maybe we can do, moving it slightly towards the back, making the driveway longer, or, seeing what we can do and represent it to the board if that was okay.
Okay, so how far out do you feel you need to go?
If you don't mind, can I consult with my wife?
Sure, we'll give you a
Thank you.
second.
We just jump in and say 2 weeks might not be a lot, it takes time to get an answer.
It does take time.
Maybe you need a month.
1 month?
Sure.
1 month good from today?
12th meeting, so we need to have everything in by June 1st.
Do you need to go?
No, I'm sorry, by
Nope.
June 5th.
So if you feel that you can do that and you're close, that's fine, and if you don't make it, then I would say call
June 26th.
call ahead of time, a week or two, right?
The hearing of June 12th will not work for me, as I am on call that night for quick responses.
June 26th?
June 26th?
That should be plenty of time.
June 26th would work great for me.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we're all set.
Yes.
Procedurally, I didn't close, I should have opened the public hearing again? Or did
You
we?
did.
You did.
Yeah,
Okay.
just close it.
Okay.
But we didn't vote on it.
Okay, so we'll close the public hearing and go back to the public meeting?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure procedurally we're good.
Yeah.
Okay,
All good.
so public meeting is now open again? All right, so so I'll make a motion to table this application to a certain date of June 26th. And at that time, we would reopen the public hearing, and all testimonies that we've heard so far would be in the record, would still stand. Ms. McKay, seconded. All in favor of tabling this motion? Tabling, 5-0. All right, sir. We'll see you in June. Okay, thank you. All right, I'll close the public meeting for this case. Is anybody need to take a break?
I'm good.
I'm all right.
Okay, all right, so. If you want to testify, your son, yes. All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to like to open the public meeting for case number 6. It's for Jerome and Karen Prevost, owners of 58 Caldwell Road, sheet 105, lot 46, requesting the following: a special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-15, Table 15-1, Number 3, to allow an accessory in-law dwelling unit, and the following variances. 2, from the Land Use Code, Section 190-32, to exceed maximum size of accessory dwelling unit, 750 square feet permitted, 811 square feet proposed. And 3, from Land Use Code, Section 190-16, Table 16-3, to encroach 2 feet into the 10-foot required left yard setback to construct an addition connecting detached garage to house, R9 zone, Ward 6. Welcome, sir. Can I have your name and address, please?
Hi, my name is Jerome Prevo, and I live at 58 Caldwell Road.
Maybe tilt the microphone up a little bit.
Just, lift it up, I think the whole thing. There you go, perfect.
Jerome Prevo, 58 Caldwell Road. We're here seeking a special exception to build a accessory dwelling unit onto our property. With that, there's an existing garage that we're going to connect to, and that's only 8 feet off the property line, so we need to get a variance for that. The dwelling unit that we're going to construct, we will construct it at the 10-foot setback, required setback. The oversize of the dwelling unit is mainly for a second bedroom. My in-laws, my father-in-law is 87 with COPD. My mother-in-law is coming down with the early signs of dementia, so they're going to need care. And the second bedroom is for possible in-home care if we need it.
Okay. Mr. Correa?
So, I was trying to understand, like, the garage is, as you look at your place from the street, is on the left-hand side. And are you proposing to build a connection of the garage, and is that the new, is there a new construction, and if so?
There is. We're going to plan to connect well, this is the plot plan with the main house.
Take that with you, thank
We're
you.
going to connect the main house to the garage with a mudroom, and then build the accessory dwelling unit off the back of the garage.
Okay, so the proposed accessory dwelling unit would be on the back of the garage, and would it be the same, is it proposed to be the same width as the garage?
No, it's going to step in from the property line 2 feet, so we maintain the 10-foot setback.
Okay,
And then the dwelling unit's a 30-foot. The footprint of the dwelling unit is basically a 30 by 30.
okay. I
I
have a-
do have drawings that our architect finally finished. I didn't have them in time.
Yeah, because I'd like to see it, because it was a little, I was struggling to try to.
So, Mr. Correa,
Want to make sure I'm giving you the right set, sorry.
so the reason for the variance is because when they connect the garage, it's already in that setback?
Yes.
Well, there's the main house, which is the principal structure. There's a detached garage. By putting the connection between the two and having that act as like an office space, it's basically making the whole thing one principal structure. So the whole thing would have to meet that side yard setback. The existing garage is, you know, as the owner said, is 8 feet from the property line, so that's the one variance for the 2-foot setback there. The entire accessory dwelling unit in the back meets all setbacks. The only thing that they're asking for that is the extra 61 square feet, but that meets all setbacks. There's also no new front door, no new driveway access, all the new code provisions of all, he's okay with that.
Yeah, the characteristics of the
Yeah,
house
all
will
that
stay
too,
the
'cause you won't
same.
even really see it from the front, it's all in the back.
Mr. Correa?
I have a question that has nothing to do with this application, but I'm really curious. You have the most unique roof line I've ever seen on the right-hand side.
Yes,
Do you
that
have
is
water
strange.
problems with that roof, or no?
We're actually having it re-roofed as we speak, but it's an indoor pool.
Oh,
I
you
don't know if you
it
know
leaks, huh?
Benson's Animal Farm, the Preventures, they had built this house. It's a very unique house, and that's one of the reasons why we bought it. And we're bringing it up to date. There was a lot of outdated stuff within the house.
Okay.
But yeah, it's pretty unique.
Had to ask. I was like, wow, never seen anything like that before.
Any other questions for the applicant? Questions? No? Okay, thank you. Is anybody else in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this application? Come on up, sir, and give us your name and address, please.
My name is Ray Pino. I live at 54 Caldwell. My property abuts the garage side of the of my neighbors, and I'm in favor of the construction that they want to do. I have no complaint, no issues or anything on it.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you for coming. Anybody else like to speak in favor of this application? Okay, seeing none. Anybody with questions, concerns, or oppositions with this application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Go ahead. sir.
Looking at me, I'll kick it
Hello.
off. I didn't understand exactly how the construction was gonna look till I saw those construction plans. And seeing that, I find support for it. I mean, there's no additional incursion into the side yard setback here. You know, by touching the garage to the house, it becomes a non-conforming structure. But I appreciate the support of the abutter, you know, to just hear his support, that he doesn't have any concern for this. It makes me feel much more comfortable. And as far as the 800 feet versus the 700 square feet, or is it 800?
811 versus 750.
811 versus 750. I mean, I feel that it's a reasonable rationale to plan for the second bedroom, and that the lot size is so large that, you know, I don't think it's out of character because of the large lot size, and you're not really gonna see it from the street anyway, so I think it meets the criteria, and I find support for it. I'm open to everybody else's opinion, though.
Mr. Lino?
I'm fine with it.
Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, I generally pretty much concur with what Mr. Courier said.
Okay. Ms. Morris?
I'm in support as well.
Ms. McKay?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. They're doing what they have to do to make it an ADU, and the garage was there and was already non-conforming. The ADU won't be, but because they're gonna attach it, now they all are non-conforming, so yeah, I have no problem with it.
Okay. And I also have no issue with it, and it is a large lot, and, you know, it's
Exactly.
obvious what's going on. Also, it probably wasn't clear, but the applicant did mention that he would be following the accessory dwelling unit special conditions that led. Right, except for the first one, we're getting a variance for that, so, okay. All right, so I just want to point that out. Does anybody like? Yeah, and the parking is, you know, yeah, huge driveway, right, so there's no issue there. Anybody like to make a motion?
How do we want to handle it with,
Do
I
the
think,
special exception first.
yeah, that would be fine. Mr. Curry or Ms. Lyon?
All right, I'll,
Special exception first.
let me take the special exception first. I'll make a motion to approve the special exception. Again, the special exception is to allow an accessory in-law dwelling unit. It's listed in the table of uses, and that's section 190-15, table 15-1, number 3. So for the special exception, I believe the board finds it'll not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety to add an accessory dwelling unit to this large lot, single-family home. I think the board finds it will not overload public water drainage, sewer, or other municipal system. It's all serviced by our municipal services, and we feel there'll be no impact with that. The special regulations, there's 9 of them, and all but one are fulfilled. What isn't fulfilled is that the primary, the accessory dwelling unit does not exceed 750 square feet. So I make a note of that because we will be making a vote on that variance here tonight in just a few minutes. I think the board finds it will not impair the integrity or be out of character with the neighborhood or be detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare of the residents to allow this construction that essentially attaches the garage to the house and forms an office and accessory dwelling unit. So with the exception of the 750 square feet, it meets all the criteria. I will be making a motion to approve that in a moment, but, so I make a motion to approve the special exception as requested, and I'd also again like to reiterate that the other 8 criteria, or criteria of 2 through 9, through our written application and testimony of the applicant, will be adhered to. So I make a motion to approve.
Seconded by Mr. Shaw.
but if, with a request for the motion to just say contingent upon an area
Oh, okay,
variance
yeah, let me
approval, I
clarify
think
that.
that clears it.
Yeah, so the motion, I would say, is contingent upon approval of the variance for the 811 square feet.
Was that a second, or were you asking?
I was seconding with wanting to
Okay,
bring that
all
up,
right.
so
So,
now I'll
okay,
second that.
all right. Any further discussion? All in favor? It's 5-0. Okay, so that motion passes, and we'll take on the next motion for the variance.
So I make a motion for the area variance, and again, the area variance tonight is a request for 811 square feet for the accessory dwelling unit when 750 square feet is permitted. I think the board finds that this area variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, which is a two-bedroom accessory dwelling unit with the stated intent of possibly having professional help.
Mr.
Are you
Ferry?
okay with just doing both area variances together? Because there
Oh.
is the one for the, because of the
Okay.
encroachment.
Sure.
Setback.
So I'll add the third criteria, which is to encroach 2 feet into the 10-foot required left side yard setback, in addition to the 811 square feet proposed. So on the variance is needed to enable the applicant proposed use of the property. The 811 square feet, I think the board finds it's worthy of support because it will allow the applicant to have 2 bedrooms for the stated intent of having potential professional help needed, and for the 2 feet into the 10-foot required left side yard setback. I think the board finds this is a reasonable request because the incursion of 2 feet is already occurring in the garage, which now becomes part of the primary structure with this proposal to attach it. So both these requests, I think the board finds is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. I think the board finds it will not adversely affect the property values of surrounding parcels. It's not contrary to public interest, and substantial justice is served to allow the 811 square foot proposed ADU and the 2 feet into the 10-foot required left side yard setback.
Seconded by Mr. Shaw. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of this? 5-0. So motion passes. Congratulations. And again, just a fair warning, there's a 30-day window of appeal, but congratulations. Does anybody, with that, I'll close the public meeting on this case. And does anybody need to take a break?
I wouldn't mind getting a quick break.
Okay, we're going to take a 5-10 minute break.
Doesn't matter which one you do first, I guess. One should be pretty quick. We'll try, but it should be evening, say, yeah, with the people here. Not in a rehearing request. Only if
my daily driver, though. I don't wanna put the miles on it.
Yeah, see, do you know what I'm talking about?
I've got this old, GTI that.
Okay, I'm sure we're still taping it. Okay, we're gonna come back into session. So next on our agenda are two rehearing requests. So we'll tackle the first one on the list, which is the rehearing request for, so we'll tackle the one for, what's the address on here? 27 April Drive.
Are we doing 30
Bridges first.
East
Oh,
Park Street?
okay. We'll
You
do
wanna
Bridges
do- or
first.
you wanna do-
That's just the
yes.
order that they were in this, it doesn't really matter which one is
Yeah,
done.
I think actually it would be a good idea to do the April Drive one first.
Okay, so,
What are we doing first?
we're gonna do April Drive, rehearing request first.
I just have to make sure I have the right document.
So,
Randy,
the
yeah.
next page over.
On this one. On
April
this
Drive.
one, I'm right. You're backwards.
So I'd like to open a public meeting for rehearing requests, and I'll just read in the rehearing requests. The owner is Christopher and Carrie Brogan. The request of the rehearing is Phyllis and Claude Lasad of 25 April Drive. Case address is 27 April Drive. The hearing request from 2/27/18, public hearing, Christopher R. and Carrie R. Brogan, owners, 27 April Drive. Sheet A, Lot 472, requesting variances from Land Use Code, Section 19-16, Table 16-3 for the following, was to encroach 6 feet into the 25-foot required yard setback, front yard setback, two, to encroach 4 feet into the 10-foot required right side yard setback. Both requests to construct an attached 28 by 28-foot garage with a family room above was in the RA Zone, Ward 7. And it was previously canceled from a March 13th meeting due to weather. The zoning board approved the variances.
Just, I think the one thing that's incorrect, at least on what's written here. The rehearing request is from the 3/27/18 public hearing. not the
Okay,
February.
okay. All right, so the correction is, the hearing is for the 3/27/18 public hearing. It was incorrectly marked on that paperwork received, but that's okay. We've made that correction. Okay, so we'll follow the process on the rehearing request. We did get, right. So we did get the package for the rehearing request, right? Everybody has this in front of them, right here, from Phyllis and Claude Lassard. There's the, okay, so I'll read into the record what Mr. and Mrs. Lassard wrote. And again, the section of the rehearing request application starts with, we respectfully request that the ZBA grant a rehearing on this matter for the following reasons. So what was written here was attended meeting, couldn't sit no longer because of medical reasons, stayed 2.5 hours, didn't get to hear the hearing, reasons against it would be fine, would be a fire hazard, want at least 10 feet from property line, no privacy close to bedrooms. Concerning the address of 27 April Drive, Christopher R. and Kerry L. Brogan, date that this was written, it was 4/7/18. Okay, so that's in the record. Am I missing anything at this point? Right, so we're gonna go over the 5 criteria for rehearing requests, and I think we'll.
4?
4. Yeah. Did I say 5? I'm sorry, I'm so used to saying 5,
Yes,
right?
we say 5
I
a lot.
apologize.
Yeah.
And I think we'll follow kind of the same process, right? We'll go one by one and we'll go around the table, okay? And procedurally, Ms. Boras can still participate, right? But the voting will be just the 5 of us, right? Okay? So the first question is was there any procedural error? This includes improper notice, denying someone the right to be heard, et cetera. Mr. Currier.
My short answer is no. I mean, I did want to address the folks, obviously they said it was a long meeting, and after 2.5 hours, they say they left. I didn't myself realize that anybody with an interest had left. I don't know if it would have made a difference at the time, but I think that does not, I think the notice was proper, and we didn't deny anyone from being heard. So my short answer is no.
Mr. Lionel.
I agree with Mr. Courier.
Mr. Shaw.
No.
Ms. Boras.
No.
Ms. McKay.
No.
And myself, no. So first question is no. Do we, do we take a vote on the first question or just
No, I think this is the way we've done
no, okay, all right. Okay. Second question is, was it an illegal decision? In other words, did the board fail to completely address each of the points of law required for the special exception and/or variance? Mr. Curry.
I think it was not an illegal decision. I think we did address each of the points of law for the variance.
Mr. Lionel.
It was not an illegal decision.
Mr. Shaw.
It was not an illegal decision.
Ms. Boras.
Not an illegal decision.
Ms. McKay.
No, it was not an illegal decision.
And no for myself also. Does the request for the rehearing contain any new information not presented or available to the board at the original public hearing? Mr. Curry.
Well, in this, I would say yes. I mean, I don't believe we had any testimony about a fire hazard, so I think that's new. There was discussion about privacy and, being closer or 4 feet closer to the side yard setback. But speaking on the fire hazard, maybe I'm kind of sliding into question number 4. Yes, I mean, whenever structures get closer, I guess in theory, the fire hazard gets greater. But if this point were debated, and we've heard this before when there've been incursions in side yard setbacks, I don't think that, other zoning districts allow structures to be closer than what's here, so I don't think that the idea of this posing a fire hazard, it's new information, I think, to me, but it also doesn't, it wouldn't cause me to change my vote on that, because I don't think it's a substantial issue at all. And on the privacy, because, these folks, I mean, I feel bad that it was a long meeting and they couldn't stay. I take that for face value. However, on the privacy point, I mean, we did stipulate that there are no windows on that side of the house, and I think that would not impact the privacy at all. I think there's not going to be any noise or air conditioners or any impact of privacy because of that. I think that's a worthwhile stipulation. And, I mean, it is closer than permitted. It's 4 feet closer. But with the stipulation of the no windows, I felt that it was, I think it's still a reasonable variance to grant. So I guess I know I'm sliding into question 4, and if I shouldn't be, I'm apologizing for that. But that is some new information, but it's not impactful on the way I would have voted then, I feel.
So number 3 would be,
Well, I would say, yes, there's some new information, but is there anything that would cause me to make a different decision? No.
okay,
So I'm answering 3 yes, but 4 no.
okay. Good, thank you. Mr. Lionel?
I would say no to 3. There is no new information provided. There is an unsubstantiated claim, which is not, to me, the same as information. And that's regarding the so-called, fire hazard. Well, we think there's a fire hazard. That's not information. That's just sort of something thrown out there. And the rest of it is something that we did discuss.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, I guess I would say no also.
Okay. Ms. Boras?
I would also say no.
She can't vote.
She can participate.
Oh, that's right. This is not a vote.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Thank you, Ms. Morris. Ms. McKay?
No.
Also no for myself, and exactly what Mr. Lionel said, I appreciate it, but I don't think there's any quantification of that, what that is, or proof of that, so it would be a no for me.
Carter has a comment.
Plus, any new construction, I mean, the garage is probably gonna have to have a fire-rated wall anyway on that side, so is my guess. So it'll meet all the building code requirements,
That was
whether
my
it's at the
assumption.
setback line or 4 feet into the setback.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Just to,
Clark. Thank you. Is there anything which could cause the board to make a different decision?
For me is no.
Mr. Lionel?
No.
Mr. Shaw?
No.
Ms. Boras?
No.
Ms. McKay?
No.
Myself, no. Okay, so,
final vote to.
okay, so, so I'll make
Motion to
make
deny.
a motion to deny the rehearing request. So I'm,
Based upon all the 4 points that have been discussed individually and collectively by the entire board, that the answers are, that it's not met.
so I'll make a motion to deny the rehearing request based upon the 4 questions, the discussion that we had in our discussion on those, each of us saying what we thought about those, what we thought. All right, so Ms. McKay seconds the motion. All those in favor of denying the rehearing request, raise your hands. That's unanimous, 5 to nothing. So that rehearing request is denied. So I close the public meeting on the rehearing request for 27 April Drive. I'll give you a minute to catch up.
Yes, please.
Just let me know when you're good. So if I get going.
I'm
Good.
sorry.
Okay, that's
I just
okay.
wanted to make sure I got it all in there.
Okay, I'd like to open up the public meeting for a rehearing request for owner Bridges Domestic and Sexual Violence Support Services. Requester of rehearing is BCM Environmental and Land Law. Case address is 33 East Pearl Street. The rehearing request was from, is this date again, to be corrected? 3? Right. Excuse me? 3, right?
I think
3?
it was also 327.
327. So rehearing request from 32718, public hearing. Bridges Domestic and Sexual Violence Support Services, owner 33 East Pearl Street, sheet 34, lot 6, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16-3, for a minimum land area, 4,869 square feet existing, 13,939 square feet required to convert an existing building from office space to a 4-unit multifamily residential use. It's in the RC Zone, Ward 4. The zoning board approved the variance. Now, everybody received, right, correct, the motion for rehearing from BCM Environmental and Law Firm, LLC, which was a 11, 12, 13, was a 13-page document, and everybody had a chance to review that? Okay, so we feel comfortable in moving forward? Okay. So move forward with the first question was there any procedural error? This includes improper notice, denying somebody the right to be heard, et cetera. I'll just pick on you again,
No
sorry.
problem. I say no, I think it was properly notified, and we gave everyone the right to be heard. In fact, I believe we extended testimony on behalf of both the applicant and some, opposing the application, because there was so much volume there. So I think my answer is no procedural error.
Mr. Lionel.
No error.
Mr. Shaw?
No.
Ms. Boras?
No.
Ms. McKay?
No.
And myself is no. Okay. Was it an illegal decision? In other words, did the board fail to completely address each of the points of law required for special exception and/or variance?
Well, I think there's several claims in the rehearing request, and I'd like to touch on a couple of those. The first being on page 4 at the bottom, on the bottom paragraph. The board found, it claims the board found that the spirit and intent of the ordinance is being kept in good faith. The building will have no exterior changes. So the rehearing request is stating that the board did not adequately address the spirit and intent, and they use the example that exterior ramps and other features will be added to make the building more accessible, yet the rehearing request claims that we said the board said there wouldn't be any exterior modifications to the home. I feel that this board deliberated far beyond just the exterior situation of the home when we were considering spirit and intent. I know for myself, and I think for the board, we recognize that this is a residential property that had converted to, a business use and was essentially being asked to go back to a residential property, which is the zone that it's in, and that there are other houses, that weren't just businesses in the area. And therefore, I think in summary, the board felt, certainly I did, that because of all that, it was within the spirit and intent, and it wasn't just the claim that there was going to be, and I think the applicant was rightly claiming there's going to be no exterior changes of the structure. And even with that claim, if somewhere in the application it talked about adding ramps, many homes, as people get disabled, put ramps on, and that, to me, isn't a substantial change to the exterior structure anyway. So I don't agree with that argument. I think that that's all the board considered on spirit and intent. I think we considered the whole neighborhood and the density therein. So the other point, I guess I'll leave it at that for now, and we can go around.
Mr. Lionel?
I do not feel it was an illegal decision. I read carefully the claims by in the rehearing request, and they don't conform to my recollection of the participation and review of the minutes, and my understanding of the applicable laws.
Thank you. Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, I likewise feel that there was not an illegal decision, and that the board did actually significantly consider all the points of law and through everything from our questions during testimony to our deliberations. So I feel that we definitely did our due diligence in that regard.
Ms. Boras?
I concur with my colleagues, there's no illegal decision.
Ms. McKay?
Thank you. While I understand the reasoning here, and I concur with the logic of the reasoning, it was not an illegal decision by the board. It doesn't invalidate the fact that I agree with, the issues that were raised. I just disagree that this is not an illegal decision.
I also don't think it's a legal decision, and as most of us have stated, I think we spent a lot of time on this, and from myself and my recollection and my review of the minutes, but also reviewing other forms of the testimony, parts of it, I think that there was a lot of back and forth and lots of clarification from what I remember and heard. So in that case, it's a no for me.
Mr. Falk has a comment.
It looks like everybody unanimously feels that the decision was not illegal. Getting back to Mr. Courier's point about paragraph 4,
Page 4 at the bottom.
page 4,
Yeah.
bottom paragraph, about the spirit and intent, about the exterior changes. The request was for land area. Whether or not they do exterior changes or not, I don't think it really makes any difference. Like, as Mr. Courier said, people change windows out, they change the color of the paint, they change ramps and put on porches and decks and do different things to homes all the time, everybody, whether it's a commercial or residential or industrial building. And that really doesn't have anything to do with the spirit and intent. The spirit and intent was for the land area, and that was discussed at length. So I just want to say that, that our staff would agree, based on the fact that the spirit and intent was discussed quite a bit.
Okay, question, we have the question number So we're all set. Okay, so question number 3 is, does the request for rehearing contain any new information not presented or available to the board at the original public hearing?
My short answer is no. I just feel I need to focus in on, let me just pull up an area here, that what is not, I think, discussed in this rehearing request is the stipulations that the board put on, which, an important one for me was that the family, if we want to call it that, was a stipulation based on this use as it's used in this fashion, and if this sort of, temporary transitional living were to go away, that it would revert back to the underlying zoning. And there was also the stipulations, as I would say, provided by the applicant, which was how, I guess I'd summarize it by saying the potential, or not the applicants, but the residents who would be there would be screened, per a process that's been in play for many years. The parking would not occur at this site. It would occur down the street. There'd only be 2 parking spaces used, I think, by the employees. So there was this, whole page of stipulations by the applicant and then stipulations placed on the board. And those, in my mind, in summary, make this use not as intensive as a typical 4-family. But that is not, in my mind, discussed in this rehearing request, yet is a very valid point for me to have found support in this. So, I guess I'm answering the question in a long way. I don't think the rehearing request has any new information. It speaks a lot about information, but really just without the stipulations involved. And the stipulations, I think, to me, are very impactful and warrant the variance. So, in short, I don't believe this has any new information presented or available at that night.
Thank you. Mr. Lino?
I agree with Mr. Courier. There is, this document is quite long, but pretty much everything in here was discussed during the original hearing. And no new information.
Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, I mean, I think other than if you want to note that there was a lot of argument added with a lot of citations for other cases to justify their points, one might consider that to be new information, but I don't consider that to be new information germane to the case itself. It's more just reinforcement of their arguments, either for why our decisions were wrong or misinterpreted or whatever you might want to say. But I did not find that there was any actual new points, evidence, or information that really related to the specifics of the case and our decision of the information that would go into that. So my long answer leads to a no.
Thank you. Ms. Boros?
My response is no.
Ms. McKay?
No, especially based on Mr. Shaw and Mr. Courier, what they had to say. I concur completely, but no, there's no new information.
Myself, no. I read this document, several times to try to understand it, and, but I came to, I think, the same conclusion, notwithstanding I'm not an expert in law, but, for myself and what I recollect and what I reviewed, I don't think there's anything new as a whole. All right. Is there anything which would or could cause the board to make a different decision?
My short answer is no. When we have received rehearing requests in this fashion in the past, there's a part of me that says, well, let me cogitate and look up each of those cases that are cited and, but I didn't do that. I don't think there's a need to do that. I think we go off the 5 criteria, and as we interpret that per the general case law. So, no, there's nothing in here that would cause me to make a different decision.
Mr. Lino?
I also think that I would not have made a different decision. We spent an awful lot of time on many different aspects of the various criteria, going into more detail than I've ever done during my time with the board. I don't see anything so far that would suggest I would change my opinion.
Mr. Shaw?
Likewise, I agree with my colleagues. I don't think there was, again, with no other new information here, I don't feel that any of the points that the rehearing request is trying to make are anything that would lead me to believe that I or we would consider any different decision.
Thank you. Ms. Boras?
I concur with my colleagues.
Ms. McKay?
Okay, well, and I read on pages 10 and 11 about all the stipulations we made, and if the board granted a variance with the stipulated conditions would restrict and burden the property, unlike other neighboring properties. In doing so, the board has allowed Bridges to create its own hardship in order to satisfy the variance criteria. They say this is unlawful, and I don't know if that's what we did or didn't do. So I don't think this would be, it wouldn't cause me to make a different decision because I was the one dissenting vote. I would still be probably the one dissenting vote. This is, but if it is unlawful, that we did create it, then to me that information would be new, and so I would say yes, because I learned something new.
And for myself, short answer is no. I don't think I would have made a different decision. Okay, so with that, I'll make a motion to deny the rehearing request. This hearing request. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, I didn't know if that was the extent of your motion, and you were looking for a second.
I was just thinking for a minute. I think that's all I need to do, right? So again, I'll restate, I'm making a motion to deny the hearing request for Bridges Domestic and Sexual Violence Support Services. The request is BCM Environmental and Law at 33 East Pearl Street. So all those in favor of denying the?
Seconded it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I second.
Okay, I'm sorry. Seconded by Mr. Lionel, jumping ahead of myself. Okay, so
Discussion?
all those in,
Excuse me.
oh, sorry, in discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to, because of, if you will, the brevity of your motion, I'd just like to note, though, that we did carefully consider these 4 major criteria, and the majority of the board for all the criteria did feel that the questions were not satisfied. There were a couple specific exceptions to that, and I think even with that considered, I still believe that the majority of the board will find that we have concurrence that this rehearing request does not have merit and should be denied.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. I'm learning as I go along, but thank you for your experience.
No, and I agree with Mr. Shaw, even though I felt there was a piece of the information that was new to me, I still wouldn't have made a different decision. I still would have dissented.
Any more discussion? All those in favor of denying the rehearing request? That's 5. Okay, so I close the public meeting for this case, for this rehearing request. Next business is, we have meeting minutes? Do we have meeting minutes?
We've got meeting minutes from the April 24th.
Right, so we have one set of meeting minutes from April 24th. Does anybody have any corrections or anything that they want to edit or anything?
I didn't see any changes necessary.
Didn't either.
Nothing at all?
I didn't.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the April 24th minutes as presented.
Second by Mr. Shaw. All those in favor of approving the minutes? That's 5. None against, okay? And then we have our next agenda. Over here. Next agenda for May 12th. May 22nd. West Gwinnett Road is not close enough to post, right?
That one was before the board before.
Yeah.
I think the board probably remembers the first one.
Hmm.
That's coming back for us.
I don't see any impact. I mean, the closest thing is the first case, but I don't think it's anything that needs to worry about.
The third one was before the board a few years ago, and they're just changing it around a little bit, but they still need to come back.
Then, sign for Church on West Elm Street.
So there's no regional impact.
So, we
So
all
no
agree?
regional
No,
impact, I
no.
see none.
Yeah.
I see none.
None. Okay, everybody's no. Okay, is there any other business? Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Shaw. All in favor?
Aye.
5? Meeting's adjourned at 9:16. Thank you.